Welcome back everyone. After a long series and a supercut later, I decided to do yet another one-off for a smaller game, one that I completed and am now legally obligated to make a video on. Welcome to the Inverse. Inner Space is an exploration game developed by Polyknight Games, published by Asper, that takes place in this world called the Inverse. This game pairs you, an AI programmed into a plane, with the archaeologist, a guy in a boat, to explore these inverted worlds. It's a very interesting and beautiful game, and gets even better to look at as you play more, you know? You have to collect relics for the archaeologists to analyze and to advance in the game, and more related to this video specifically, collect airframes. Airframes are basically types of planes that you can use in the game, and that's what I'm ranking from worst to best today. These airframes have different stats, some prioritizing speed, others durability, others agility, and other stuff, which we'll get into. There are 7 airframes to rank, and I definitely recommend this game, especially if you're into unique visuals and exploration. But without further ado, let's begin ranking all airframes from the game Inner Space. This first airframe, called the Glass Piano, was made available in the free update to the game. Minor spoiler for this video, the Glass Piano is just like another airframe on this list in terms of stats, except that it's glassified. All that means is that the durability of this airframe is utter doggy poo poo pee pee compared to the regular version of the airframe, which is just piano. This is definitely an airframe made for the professionals, because one single collision with this airframe will destroy it, which will respawn you at the spawn point of the world that you're in. That wouldn't be so bad, except that sometimes you're inside these giant structures in order to collect relics to advance in the game, and having to respawn means you have to traverse the painstaking terrain once again. They added this guy into the game to challenge the player, I get it, but I'm not with it. I'm not even that good at video games to begin with. I mean, I play Lego games, for Christ's sake. So this is the airframe you start with at the beginning of the game, the one the archaeologist gifts you. It looks the part too, with its back rotors and overall old-timey vibe it gives off. The one you see here has the rainbow color scheme that I paid like wind money for, so it doesn't look old-timey, but trust me, if you played the game, the Woodwind you play at the beginning with no colors looks old and farty. Anyway, the main attraction to this airframe is the durability. Unlike the Glass Piano, where the durability was the absolute minimum, the Woodwind's durability is maxed out. The Woodwind's purpose is for the tight corridors that would surely be the end for that of the Glass Piano. So if you crash into a few walls here and there, it's no big deal. The Woodwind also is slow when drifting. Basically, to make a sharp turn as opposed to yawing left or right, you can drift, aim a certain direction, and shoot in the direction you choose. But while you're aiming for the next direction, the airframe keeps going in the single direction you were before you started drifting. So if you're too slow, you could crash into something while you're aiming. I call it drifting, even though it kind of isn't. But, you know, anyway, the speed at which the Woodwind goes when you're drifting is pretty slow compared to others, so that's nice. But of course, it's the beginning airframe, so it's only natural that you would want to upgrade from this bad boy. This is the fast boy of the game. When there are different stats for different airframes, there is bound to be one that had maxed out speed, and I mean, let's just look at its name, Zephyr, as in the Greek god of the west wind, or more prominently known as the super scene in the hit game LEGO Incredibles, made by TT Games. This word is associated with the element of air, and so is airframe. Also, spark refers to the fast nature of electricity, so Zephyr Spark, fast airframe. Name analyzed. There you go. Although Zephyr Spark is fast, it does have a major drawback. Turning with this guy is a hassle. That's why drifting is essential with the Zephyr Spark airframe. Drifting in this game requires practice, so I would suggest using this airframe when you're more experienced with the controls. Another thing is that speed isn't that much of a priority, at least not for me. There's no time constraints at all in this game, and going faster will just make it harder to traverse the tight corridors that you have to deal with in the game. I can definitely see this being used by speedrunners since it is insanely fast, but again, the speedrunner better be a god with the controls before they attempt it with the Zephyr Spark. This is the Tidal Horn, and this guy's specialty is all things underwater. Yeah, I haven't mentioned it so far at all, but being underwater accounts for at least a quarter of the gameplay. Each airframe has a dive mode, and when you press the button to switch over to that mode, the airframe folds its wings and falls not down. Since it's an inverted world, gravity also is inverted, I guess. The airframe will just fall towards the nearest piece of land or water. But when a plane is in dive mode and goes underwater, it's a whole other vibe. Anyway, Tidal Horn is better underwater than it is in air, and as you can see, it kind of looks like a shark here, and I'm starting to think that was on purpose or something. Tidal Horn allows for more control over your airframe underwater than pretty much any other airframe in this game. It's a shame though, because you don't spend a copious amount of time in the water compared to in the air. This here is probably the best balanced airframe of the 7 on the list. The piano is also the standard version of the glass piano, as you may remember from a few minutes ago. The glass piano has no durability at all, and one hit is enough to destroy it and make you respawn. Well, luckily for the regular piano, you can take a few hits before it's down for the count. One thing I forgot to mention about the glass piano that also applies to regular piano is that these airframes play musical notes as you fly it. In fact, it's why it's called piano. Piano keys can be heard as you fly around, and the notes you hear can change depending on the environment you're in, whether it be in the air or the water or in tight spaces. The main thing to note about the piano, see what I did there, is that it's a solid airframe to use if you want consistent stats all the way through, as opposed to most airframes on the list where they have like one stat that's maxed out and then lacking in the rest. Now, one of the biggest challenges in this game is finding out where to go. I've spent so much time wandering these worlds just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And more often than not, the place I need to go is this tiny little opening that I glossed over countless times already. And inside these openings are really tight corridors that lead to something I need to interact with. Like I said, I'm not perfect at video games, and there were times I hit a wall, which led me to hit another wall, and then another wall, and then repeated until I blew up. But then again, I forgot where the opening was that took so long to find, and then I'm back to wandering aimlessly. So with that in mind, I want to nail these indoor segments of the game perfectly on the first try. Astral Key definitely helps with that. The Astral Key excels at turning. When inside of organic structures, Astral Key is definitely the go-to, especially since the other airframes like Zephyr Spark will continue my problems with hitting walls and whatnot. Let me tell you, those problems I highlighted in the last segment with the Astral Key were all on me and my lack of skill. But with this #1 airframe, it further improved the situation, even more so than the Astral Key. This is Hopper, and the whole drifting thing became obsolete. When you press the drift button with Hopper, instead of the airframe moving in one direction while you point towards your next direction like all the rest of the airframes do, the Hopper stops entirely. This is huge, and when I found this out, Hopper was the only airframe I used for the remainder of the game. This airframe especially helped out with the small corridors I was talking about, because if I start hitting walls, I just press the drift button and I just stop completely and recalibrate my situation. This also made relic hunting a breeze. Relics are usually in the hardest spots to get to, but Hopper makes it too easy. Honestly, Hopper kind of breaks the game, and I'm not really complaining. It didn't really take away from the experience for me. Hopper is without a doubt the best airframe to play in inner space. So that was every airframe ranked for the game Inner Space, and if this video convinced you to give the game a try, by all means, do it. It's only $20 US for all platforms. My next project, though, is another long one. It's a 11-part every character ranked for another LEGO game. And then after that, it's a one-off every blank ranked for like a game collection, and then another LEGO game after that. Again, like I always say for these updates, I have a lot on my plate. I'll get to them when I get to them. And yeah, that's like what, 11 plus 1 plus 2, that's like 15 videos after this that I'm planning to do. So yeah, in the meantime, adios. Thank you for joining me in the Inverse.